This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. If you're looking for cards in the US, look no further as you can use the promo code MTGMuddstah to get you 5% off anything on the site. Or if you're in Canada like me, you can use the same promo code at Multizone to get 10% off your orders of singles. If cards aren't what you're looking for, Original Magic Art has playmats, tokens, and sweet art that you can use that same promo code to help you get 5% off your order there. And if you just want to help out the channel, you can always consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month and join the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game finds us back at Multizone, and I'm playing Krenko, keeping 3 snow-covered mountains, Heraldic Banner, Goblin Lookout, Pashalik Mons, and a Goblin Matron. Miguel is playing Vaevictus, keeping Demon's Disciple, Tainted Peak, 2 mountains, and Felwar Stone. Maximus is playing Nikya, keeping Command Tower, Cinder Glade, Thriving Bluff, Goblin Anarchomancer, Elvish Rejuvenator, Anger, and an Arzidim Kozilek. Last but not least, Dom is playing the Angry Jellybean Omnath, keeping Cinder Glade, Forest, Nature's Lore, Genesis Wave, Crucible of Worlds, Elemental Bond, and an Oracle of Muddstah. Miguel wins a die roll and starts us off. For the first land of the game, Miguel plays a Tainted Peak. Dom plays a Cinder Glade which comes in tapped and passes. Maximus plays a Thriving Bluff, naming green as it comes in. I just play a Snow-Covered Mountain. Miguel plays a Mountain and casts a Felwar Stone. Dom plays a Forest and taps 2 to cast Nature's Lore and goes to find a Forest card. Maximus plays a Command Tower and taps a red and a green for a Goblin Anarchomancer. I just play another Snow-Covered Mountain and tap 1 red for a Goblin Welder. Miguel plays a Mountain and uses the Felwar Stone to make green needed to cast his Leafkin Druid. He then passes to Dom. Dom casts a Nisa's Pilgrimage and goes to find a Forest for the field and a Forest to his hand. Maximus is able to pay only 2 for his Elvish Rejuvenator thanks to the reduction from the Anarchomancer, and he then puts a tap land into play. He then plays a Cinder Glade from his hand, which comes in tapped, and he moves to combat. He swings at Dom for 2 with the Goblin, and connects, and passes to me. My turn has another Snow-Covered Mountain coming into play, and I then pay 3 mana, and I then tap them all for 3 mana. I use it for a Heraldic Banner, naming a red as it enters, and pass turn. Miguel casts a Fierce Empath in his main phase, which lets him go and tutor for a creature card that costs 6 or more. He reveals a Hellkite Courser, putting it to hand, and passing. Dom taps enough in his main phase for an Oracle of Muddstah. He reveals his top card, showing us Escape Shift, which considering his commander, is a pretty scary card. Maximus draws and needs only tap 4 mana for Nikya, and then goes to combat once she's out, swinging his team at me for 3, which I just choose to take. I have no land for turn, and cast a Goblin Matron. I go into my library, finding a Skirk Prospector, and put it to hand, and pass. Miguel untaps, and on his upkeep, Dom casts Nature's Claim to blow up Felwar Stone, and Miguel gains 4 life. He then draws for turn, but is now 1 mana short from his commander, and has to pass. Dom draws the earlier revealed Scapeshift, and reveals another problematic card with Finale of Devastation. Thankfully we don't have to do anything about it, as he shuffles it away as he casts Skyshroud's Claim, to go and find 2 forest cards for the field. Once he's done shuffling, he reveals a Blasphemous Act off the top, and Dom then casts an Elemental Bond, and passes to Maximus. Maximus plays a tapped Rugged Highlands, gaining 1 life as it enters. He then taps 1 land for 2 mana to cast a Viridian Emissary, and then once that's done, dashes out a Flame Rush Rider. He still has enough mana to cast Anger, and he then goes to combat. He swings everything he can at Dom, making a token copy of the Elvish Rejuvenator thanks to the Flame Rush Rider trigger. He resolves the trigger as it comes in, but sadly whiffs on lands off the top 5. Dom then blocks the original Rejuvenator and takes the rest. Maximus then exiles the token at the end of combat, and moving to his end step, returns the Rider to his hand. I untap, draw, and play a Snow-Covered Mountain. I just pass turn, which is not a great sign for a Krenko deck, and Miguel starts his turn. Miguel plays a land for turn, and then casts the tutored for Hellkite Courser. This lets him bring out Vaevictus, who now has haste as well, and he swings at me with his commander. He gets an on-attack trigger from Vaevictus, picking the Oracle, Nikya, the Welder, and his own Fierce Empath to be sacrificed, and we then reveal our top cards. Miguel hits an Evolving Wilds, Maximus and I hit a land, and Dom reveals the Blasphemous Act, which we know is on top, and just keeps it there. I then take the hit. Miguel then passes to his end step and puts his commander back to the command zone. Dom draws for turn and taps all of his mana to bring out Omnath. He enters and draws from the Bond and passes to Maximus. Maximus has a Forest for turn, and he casts a Mirror March. He still goes at Dom this time for combat, and Dom surprisingly doesn't block. With nothing else, Maximus passes. I draw and cast Dragon Fodder, making 2 Goblin tokens. I then tap 3 mana for Ashnod's Altar and have to pass to Miguel. Miguel untaps, draws, recasts Vaevictus, and passes to Dom. Dom taps out in his main phase after drawing and casts a Genesis Wave where X is 4. He hits 3 lands and Titania, who sadly gets binned while the lands hit the field. This makes Dom 3 elemental tokens from Omnath's landfall trigger, who each enter and trigger the elemental bond, drawing Dom a card 3 times. Once that's done, Dom casts a Blasphemous Act and wipes away the board. He gets 4 on death triggers from Omnath's seen elementals dying and deals all of them to Maximus for a total of 12. Maximus also makes a painful pun at this point about making him angry because anger goes to his graveyard, so you can thank me later as I spared you from it. Dom then drops an Amulet of Vigor and passes turn. Maximus plays an Incubation Druid in his main phase and begins to roll for his Mirror March triggers. He lucks out, netting 3 extra token copies, who all have haste. He then taps 2 of them since they have haste not just from the enchantment, but also from anger, and some of his lands to recast Nikya. He swings the 3rd token at Dom, which will do no damage, along with his commander, who actually does do damage. They connect if they can, and Maximus then passes and exiles the token at the end of his turn. I just tap 4 mana in my main phase to cast Krenko and pass to Miguel. Miguel has an Incarnation technique hitting the stack in his main phase, and he chooses to demonstrate it and has me get the copy. I resolve my copy first, but hit no new creatures, so I bring back the Goblin Matron. Miguel resolves his first copy as I'm tutoring, also not hitting any new creatures, so he brings back the Hellkite Courser, who in turn brings back Vaevictus from the command zone. He then resolves the second copy, and he gets to keep Clouth this time around. I reveal Goblin Warchief to the Matron trigger and put it to my hand. Miguel then swings Vaevictus and Clouth at Maximus, and we resolve the Vaevictus trigger first, which has Miguel picking a land on his side, Krenko from me, Bond from Dom, and Maximus's commander as well. We then reveal our top cards, with Dom hitting Parallel Lives, Maximus hitting Pathbreaker Ebec, and I hit an Umbral Mantle, while Miguel reveals and plays a Grey Merchant of Asphodel. It comes in, draining us each for 3 while he gains 9. The creatures finally connect, and Maximus takes 10. Miguel also gets a ton of mana from the Clouth trigger as well, and in his second main phase, casts a Butcher of Malakir, and once that's resolved, a Demon's Disciple. He sacrifices the Disciple to its own ability, which triggers the Butcher, and as a result, all of Miguel's opponents are now forced to sacrifice an extra creature if they can, since no one has a Planeswalker to sacrifice instead. Miguel then moves to his end step, and Vaevictus goes back to the command zone. Dom untaps and counts up his mana. He taps 1 green for a Birds of Paradise, which sadly doesn't stick around very long since it's sacrificed as part of the cost of Natural Order. This has Dom going into his library to find a Regal Force, who enters and draws him just 1 card. He then passes to Maximus. Maximus casts a Paleoloth in his main phase and hopes for some luck. He rolls as it enters thanks to the Mirror March, but fails and doesn't get a token copy. He goes to combat though, and asks Miguel what his blockers are. Unfortunately, they're too big, so he goes at me instead. I cast the earlier tutored for Goblin Warchief, and then play out a Goblin Lookout. I tank a bit on my turn, because at this point my board state seems like I'm on the cusp of being able to do something degenerate if I brought out Krenko, but I just don't have enough mana, so I pass to Miguel. Miguel draws, and goes straight to combat. He takes out Maximus with the swing, and has a ton of mana from Clouth in his second main phase. He uses some of it for a Demonic Tutor, and goes into his library to put a card to hand. He clearly went to find Relentless Assault because he casts it, and untaps his creatures before dropping Fires of Yavimaya. He's able to recast Vaevictus, who now has haste because of the fires, and he goes to another combat step. He swings all out at Dom, and gains even more mana. We also have to resolve the Vaevictus trigger, which has Miguel hitting a command tower after sacrificing something, and I get a Blood Moon. We then go to Miguel's next second main phase, and even though Blood Moon is out, he still has all that mana from Clouth that he can use, and he drops a Noxus Gearhulk, taking out my Warchief and gaining Miguel 2 life. He then casts a Mayhem Devil, which will pretty much shut off any combo I would have going with Krenko, and after drawing a land for turn, I scoop it up to Miguel. Game review time. So there was basically only Jund available in this game, and that makes me really happy. I have nothing against white, and I have nothing against blue, but red, black, and green are my favorite colors in Magic by far. Anytime I have a chance to play Krenko is great, even when it underperforms like in this game. I lost a lot of my Accelerant, and playing with the Skirk Prospector after I tutored for it just felt bad. Having now played through the game, and seeing how many board wipes or removal there would have been, it was definitely the right move. I think for Maximus, unfortunately, Nikya requires you to build a very specific style of deck, and while it seemed like it could have potentially gone off, unfortunately he got unlucky with those Mirror March rolls, and that made me kinda sad, because I think it would have been pretty sweet to see him flipping with a bunch of Paleoloths and bringing stuff back from his graveyard to hand, but maybe it'll happen another time. Sitting down across from an Omnath deck typically forces me to think that I'm going to have to take that player out immediately, since that deck can get out of control very quickly. I was actually pretty shocked to see how moderately threatening it was this game, and I think the only scary part was that Genesis wave when Omnath was out. He didn't hit too much, but I'm surprised he followed up that Blasphemous Act right after. I think the MVP for Miguel this game was probably that Hellkite Courser. I've really slept on that mythic from Commander Legends, but seeing it in action has got me really scratching my head as to what to put it in. It's probably not super strong in a deck like Krenko, but I could definitely see this doing some work in 2 or 3 color decks where your commander costs a lot or has a lot of restrictions around it, maybe like Rakdos. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.